Hi there, and welcome to Plant CEO. In today's episode, I'd like to welcome Zachary Witman, the CEO of GrowSquares. Hi, Zachary. How are you?
Well, thanks so much, Anand. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here. And you're in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn Heights, absolutely, right in the center.
So can you tell me the concept behind GrowSquares?
Yeah, so GrowSquares is a personalized modular gardening platform. So we have this belief that gardening is really difficult for people. And the thing that makes it inherently difficult is that spaces, everyone's individual environments are very different. So what we've done is we've spent a lot of time understanding exactly how do people's unique microenvironments impact their growth and designing a system to be able to capture just exactly what that impact looks like. So what we've done is we've gone ahead and been able to identify exactly maybe how your sun shines, how your wind blows, what's the soil underneath your feet, and then have developed a sort of garden in a box that takes advantage of our understanding of those unique parameters and really helps people not only grow the right plants for them, but helps them to grow out along the way. So when exactly they have to water and when to thin and when to pick, all of those things are codified in our very kind of paint by numbers, simple and easy to use gardening system.
So it's all around urban gardening, and obviously that's a huge trend at the moment, and especially with people being indoors because of the pandemic. So now the focus is on that, and people have the time to cultivate their gardens. Do you see this as a key factor for you, or do you also see, post-COVID when we get there, what will happen? What will happen next for you based on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, if you could tell me when post-COVID is going to happen, I'd be thrilled. So you're right? So we started this idea saying that urban gardening is really where the difficulty lies. And we still kind of continue this thesis. But what we've done is we've actually adapted our understanding of environments, not just to include urban environments, but, in cities, but, the suburbs and the countryside as well. So we find that a lot of our users, people that don't really understand necessarily how to garden so well, they usually congregate in cities, seems to be kind of a narrative that you find. But what we've done is we've ensured that regardless of where you live, right now within the continental United States, our system will work just as well for everybody. So yes, so it's an urban gardening system that's been adapted to a variety of different environments.
Yeah. So before, I think when we started initially speaking, you were just looking at certain cities in the States like New York, San Francisco, LA, Boston. And now you've decided to take it national. What drove you to make it a national offering versus a localized city one?
Well, and that's a great question, Anand. So you're right. We just started initially with 4 unique cities. And so these are some of the big cities in the country. This is Boston, New York, and on the West Coast, LA and San Francisco. So the reason we started with just those 4 cities is really twofold. One is because the quality of the data that we receive from those cities are just about as good as you can get from anywhere in the United States. And so when I say the quality of the data, it can mean a lot of things. For us, what that means is an exact understanding of how that city is laid out, how the soil in that city migrates over time, how the sun hits different windows and different balconies, and the ground in different types of times of day, how the weather migrates over time. All of these things are tracked super, super accurately with high fidelity and high resolution in cities. And I think nowhere more so than the 4 environments that we've kind of talked about before. The second fold is really just a congruency with our user base, right? I think it's no stranger, it's not a surprise that young people, people with young families, maybe those with their first apartment with a little bit of an outside space, usually migrate into large kind of metropolitan areas. And so we found that there was an educated populace that happens to coincide with our kind of target demographic that reside in those 4 cities. So between really just it's the right fit for the user, as well as kind of our right understanding of the environment, it made sense to really just start in 4 unique environments. And then the plan was to scale from there.
Yeah. So you're really like also a data science company, and data science is only as good as sort of the data sets that you feed into that. Can you tell me about, you mentioned a little bit about, capturing some of that. Can you go into a bit more detail about the sort of data sets that you're capturing?
So our understanding of kind of a larger scale environments, they piggyback on a variety of mostly radiological spectrum and phenomenon that we utilize. So we use something called LIDAR, which is it's a type of kind of radiological spectrum. We use something called synthetic aperture radar. We piggyback on a variety of different types of cellular communication protocols. All of these things really just give us a very good sort of 3D model of what a city looks like, right? So we've known since since the ancient Greeks exactly where the sun shines or sun is during the day. What we then do is we create this sort of synthetic 3D model that you place upon an environment, and then understanding where it's where the sun is. What we're able to do is we're able to forecast shadows. So if your backyard is going to be sunny or cloudy down to a very kind of specific time frame. For us, that's actually measured in seconds. So we take that, we interpolate data as well, and then feed it through things like cloud patterns, barometric pressure shifts, wind speeds, all of these things, just to get a super high resolution and super high fidelity view of what your ground looks like, or maybe not ground, maybe it's your balcony, just so that we're ensuring that you're growing the right thing and that you're able to take care of it with an understanding of how the weather and how the plant migrates and evolves over time.
Yeah, and a lot of that information is also coming from your mobile phone handset in terms of the pressure gauge, but also the light sensors, etc. A lot of that technology has been around for some time in these phones, so you'll be able to be compatible with some older generations of phones as well.
Absolutely. So we find that things like, the microphone and the sunlight sensor, those are sort of, I don't want to call them, they're not archaic. They've been around for a while and they still are utilized. I actually think we find that they're underutilized on a number of handsets. We also piggyback on things like the barometric pressure sensor. So that's a little bit of a newer suite of the kind of sensor module that goes into phones, and as well as a few other things. So it's really the interplay between outside data that resides on a variety of different servers, whether or not they're from cities, municipalities, Department of Defense, as well as running it through to both calibrate and normalize with every individual or every user at least handset.
Yeah, and the microphone, that's mainly for wind levels, or
that's for both for wind, but actually for something that we've yet to announce, one of the functionalities of the sensor, yeah, or the software.
As long as it doesn't creep out the users, right?
No. We're not listening to any. This is not Alexa, right? We're not listening to everything you said.
Yeah, cool. So you're also specializing in outdoor gardening versus hydroponic systems. Can you explain your choice behind that?
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, gardening today, we think 50, 100 years into the future, most food is going to be produced outside in sort of these, old school methods, the way it's been done for years and years. People and farmers have made tremendous gains in terms of outdoor gardening, understanding on drip irrigation systems, evolutions in terms of seeds. What we think is they're still missing, though, a fundamental understanding of their space in an easy, scalable way to really get a good idea of what works on not just 1 acre versus the next. And so what we've done is we've developed a system that, while works for for me and you and people with just a small garden as well, can be deployed nationally and internationally for the cultivation of larger crops. And so what we've done is we are using in part this this small sort of consumer test as really just a way to verify a lot of our assumptions. You talked about our data science, really to help us get a better understanding of what it takes to grow food, not just on a kind of a small scale hydroponic version, but to feed the masses. I mean, ultimately, what GrowSquares does is we're a platform to produce calories and to produce food. You find that you talked about hydroponic gardening. The majority, and I want to say probably 98 to 99% of the production of the food there are things like microgreens or lettuce. Utilizing our system, people are able to produce real sort of calorically dense, nutritious types of vegetables and herbs. Those things are just still years and years away on hydroponic systems. The math doesn't add up in the nutritional kind of understanding of both biology as well as what goes inside of, of these plants simply doesn't exist today on an indoor environment. So focusing on the outdoor for now, and anticipate moving forward, we'll probably continue to work in that direction.
Yeah, and the calorie dense vegetables, what would be the top, say 5 ones that you would have?
Oh yeah, it's not say 5 because different environments and different kind of locations, people are probably more privy or more inclined to grow other stuff. People, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the same stuff that's in your salad or what's in your sandwich, right? People love tomatoes, people love peppers. We don't just say peppers. You can do things like shishito peppers. We can do all types of kind of cool, different types of varieties. People also like to see things like cucumber grow. I know that in my block, and you're able to find this from the app to get levels of insight in terms of what and where people are growing. Eggplant is super popular in Brooklyn. So it really just sort of depends. The other thing is, naturally not everything is going to grow for everyone at the same time. So we see a migration. If you were to take a look at a map, while peppers might be popular in Brooklyn in I'd say April, they're not going to be necessarily as popular come September. So it's a migrating and kind of always moving thing.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to see that data in terms of when, the customers are buying what in which cities, and how that changes according to the type of customers they are. So what sort of customers are you planning to go for? So you've just launched the app now. So can you tell me a bit maybe about, your early adopters and to who you envision will be the people who are buying this product?
Yeah, of course. So we found that we've gotten a lot of traction from really kind of 3 different user types. So the first is going to be sort of that older millennial, somebody in their late 20s, maybe with their first, larger apartment. Maybe it's got a little bit of a balcony or a backyard. Maybe they got access to the roof. They probably gardened with their mom or probably a family member while they're growing up, but it's been a couple of years since they had taken the plunge again. And so really want somebody to hold their hand during the process. So I'd say that's the first of our kind of 3 archetypes. The second is going to be a young family. So someone with a 4, 5, 6-year-old child. They want to make sure that the kid doesn't think that all food comes from a delivery app or from the grocery store, and really like the educational component that our system has developed. So telling you about, hey, this is the germination phase, and this is what's happening inside of your soil. Kind of gives you that look into what's actually happening. That's difficult to do without this type of complementary or supplementary app. And the third type is going to be a little bit of an older individual. So I always like to kind of compare to my mom, right? So my mom loves gardening. She's actually downsized her from a house to an apartment. Used to formerly go down to Home Depot and would pick up 50-pound bags of soil and load them into her Volvo. That's not the case anymore, right? It's just too difficult. And so what we've done is we've devised a solution that's just incredibly elegant, very simple, and something that really doesn't take necessarily the manual front loading of labor that would otherwise. So it's, there was sort of 3 different core user bases, and we get lots and lots of information and different experiences for each person, but those have been sort of the early types of people who've come onto our platform.
Yeah, so you'll be selling this a square package, personalized soil with seeds according to what that end user wants to grow. Can you talk a bit about the soil ingredients and your choice behind that? And that'd be great to get some insight.
So our soil, and there's a few different variations depending upon where you live. So we understand one of the things, it's not just, how the sun shines and the wind blows, but what's sort of the soil taxonomy, depending upon, your environment. So a lot of we find is about 50% of users grow their gardens sort of removed from any of native soil. So maybe in a planter box, maybe in a balcony or the roof. It's just the native soil doesn't matter so much. But about other 50%, we find this very often in sort of the suburbs, as well as more of the countryside. They grow right in their own backyard or front yard. So understanding what actually exists becomes paramount as we develop a solution and a formula for their environments. So we've been working on our soil taxonomy and working on our soil for years. We have a soil scientist on board We're constantly sort of iterating to figure out yield for different plants. What we've done, and I think this could be, it's a good opportunity to talk about your influence on us. We've always really held ourselves to a standard saying, listen, while about 3 to 4% of our material composition, it was animal byproduct. That's something that we really wanted to get rid of over the value chain. Our environmental impact, probably shouldn't be a huge surprise, is something that we constantly think about. And so over the coming, I'd say over the past month and a half, maybe 2 months, what we've done is we've spent a considerable amount of time eliminating every component within that soil that has any type of relationship with an animal. So we formerly had blood meal, we formerly had chicken feathers. Those are sort of just the trace minerals, but those are things that we've spent some time, both in terms of the regulatory environment as well as with our soil scientists, ensuring that we were able to eliminate. But the soil otherwise is 100% organic. It is non-GMO. It is, it's sort of the best of all worlds, and something that we're incredibly proud of.
Yeah, and so since we started talking a few months back, I know that I was putting on the pressure to make sure that you'd remove the bone meal and the feathers to make it more vegan friendly, and you really lived up to that, and you made the change, and then I obviously also invested as the angel round. So yeah, I just want to say thanks for making that change, and I think it's a really important point, and it will also resonate a lot of the people who are watching this channel, especially to other investors who are looking to invest in this new agriculture tech, urban farming area, as well as people in general who are looking to grow those vegetables but don't want to have any sort of animal products. Now, I know we spoke a little bit about worm casings, which is basically worm poo, which is obviously you can, I have that in my garden, have worms in my garden. So we still have a little bit remnant of that left, but I think your plan is to try and also remove that to some degree in the future. But the main thing for me was obviously the other side of the...
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, we still were about 1%, actually a little bit less than 1% of worm casings, and that's something that we're going to be, striving to eliminate as well.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if your audience knows this or is even interested. In order to deploy soil remediants or soil groups, you need to get approved. And so we work in the United States exclusively right now. Every different state has their own regulatory body that's able to approve soil types of mixtures if you're going to be selling them to consumers. So if you make a little change, you have to get approved by Iowa, North Dakota, and Florida. So it's a big process. So we want to make sure that every time we have a different sort of iteration or different type of recipe, it's done with with a real lot of thought, because it's working with the government in all 50 states, especially during COVID, not the easiest thing in the world to get regulatory approval. So
yeah. So tell me a little bit about your background. So you spent many years as an investment banker for a hedge fund. How has that helped you today? And if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I was an investment banker and I worked in a hedge fund. So they're two different things, but either way, they're both super boring. But what they definitely did is they kind of created, and especially that latter portion, that working in a hedge fund. One of the things that I was working with is a desk that was able to price derivatives for commodities, right? So soya and corn. One of the kind of tools that they used in their toolkit was taking a look at remote aerial surveillance. And so saying, crops in the middle of Iowa or, Pennsylvania, might how green they be, right? Which is a proxy for chlorophyll. You could find out some kind of other things about plants just based upon, simple pictures. And so, I always had this idea of saying, listen, guys, if we can really get a good understanding of how well a plant is performing for its space, just, flying a plane overhead, imagine what we can do with cities, right? So, we have IoT devices, we have beacons, we have, the aforementioned LiDAR and synthetic aperture radar. Imagine if we can really piggyback on a lot of those existing technologies that simply doesn't, exist at this time for, large scale fields in very remote locations. And so that was one of kind of the big drivers to starting this. And it really kind of also helped to ground me into, where to begin. If I was to really understand environments, what's a good place to kind of base our core logic? And so was a tremendous influence. I think the other thing that it really helped me is, as you mentioned, we do a lot of data science. And so, working with numbers, having that maths is something that's super important to our product, and has really sort of led to the development of our culture, and really kind of that scientific aptitude and lens through which we have developed our products.
So yeah, you touched on quite a few things there. So where would you sort of classify today what sort of company are you? Are you do you feel like you're a data science company, a smart cities type company, or a healthy eating type company as well?
Yeah. Is there an option D of all of the above? What we do is everything is grounded in science, right? So, both numbers and science. But ultimately, our output is, at the end of the day, is plants, is healthy food. And so I think that we touch on a lot of those narratives. The data science, the healthy eating that you see that's incredibly relevant to to today's customers. That you see different in companies large and small, types of ways that they can implement these smart systems, this data science, this big data into their systems, just get understanding whether or not it's marketing or whether or not it's the product itself. I mean, for us, it's not just a buzzword. That's kind of core to who we are. We do everything in real kind of grounded, hard sciences, and with a very big understanding that the data at the end of the day is our biggest differentiator. And it was really going to set us apart from any competitor who wants to come in and create another smart gardening solution.
Where do you see your long-term vision of the company going? What's next for you, and future products that could be down the line?
Yeah, so right now we're focusing on gardening for the consumer. What we're going to do is add some sort of ancillary devices to support that mission. So these are going to be things like a smart watering can, a smart planter box. All of these things are in different various stages of development. Moving forward, we see that the application of our data is going to be very helpful in a variety of people in a variety of different environments, including kind of understanding how cities work a little bit better. Talked a little bit before about how farmers can help to raise their crops more efficiently. We're even working currently with the largest farm in New York City. Doesn't sound big, but it's actually surprisingly large, to really help them to reduce their use of fertilizers, not quite eliminate, but get to a point where it's a marginal application of their pesticides. Really get them a better understanding of how can they grow plants in an organic sense to ensure that their yields remain high and their success rates are, absolutely consistent with the leading and kind of most advanced farms out there.
Awesome. So yeah, sounds super interesting. And I wish you the best of luck and congratulations on your launch, and hopefully be speaking to you again soon.
Thank you so much for your time, Anand. Really appreciate it. This was a great call.
Okay, great. Cheers. Bye-bye.